yabba dabba doo. How's it going? James True here. Hope you're doing well. Everybody grab a body part. Doesn't matter. It could be yours, it could be your neighbor's, and swing like you just don't care. It is the 18th, 10/18. Hope everybody's doing well. Gonna be talking about some stuff today. Hope you're ready. Don't know how you feel about that. Gonna be discussing some stuff. Thank you for everyone's comments. Whether it be here on YouTube, whether it be in Patreon, whether it be in Substack, the feedback is always enriching. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. It's enriching to have it. Some of you will challenge me. Some of you won't challenge me. I enjoy both, really. Some of you guys kind of like just to sort of like, some people really, I should just say, kind of just want to like, the power behind, what do you call that? Heckling. Heckling is a, sort of like a pilgrimage, where one goes on a pilgrimage and becomes a heckler. It's actually the opposite of the fool, in a kind of way, and that this is just as much magic as the fool is. I do most of my magic from the fool category. I don't find myself heckling a lot. I find that other people think I'm heckling, and that's the exact same thing that happens when you're playing a fool, isn't it? So look at me, I just learned something the heckler doesn't know, nor does the charlatan, right? The charlatan doesn't know either. So there you go. Yeah, the troll would be a good archetype for that too. Also, the troll is under the bridge, and in a way, the troll's world is inverted, right? It's completely turned upside down, and the fool kind of has the hangman. Guys, Ta-Ro, cool stuff. Ta-Ra, boom, da. Did you get yours today? I got mine yesterday. That's why I walk this way. Everyone, ta-ra-ra, boom, da. Did you get yours today? I got mine yesterday. That's why I walk this way. We were talking about the sacrificial lamb today. And look at this lamb. He's up there just bleeding it out. Just like, you guys, you keep drinking my blood. And they're all like, let us drink your blood. It makes us fly. And he's like, okay, if you want to fly, I kind of feel important up here. Giving you my blood to drink gives me purpose in life. And, so, we've been moving through Amun, Khnum, Pan, and Daksha. I keep promising we'll get to Daksha. Probably not get to him today either. It's kind of funny. It's like, man, you think Shiva treated him bad. Wait till you watch that James True drug this guy through the green room every day of the week today, promising him that he would appear live on James True Live. And I think today we're probably not to get to him either, because I just got really involved in research, and I want to talk about it. But if we get there, we will. But before we do, I want you guys to have a little bit of a lesson in how the Bible came to be. Because I want you to imagine that 400 years has passed, and all of the original recordings of what everyone said have been lost by the people that lived through COVID-19, through the entire psyoptic wave of that, the mental beginnings of that plasma shelf, the protein shelled propaganda, the coronal changing, the removal of all sunspots, that all the people that went through that, you and me, will not be here one day. And not only will we not be here, but our children will not be here too, because time will pass. And the same thing happened with the Bible. Time passed. And when something is happening, it's not nearly as important as it serves archetypally from the past. This happens with you too. You will go through an event, and the event itself will not necessarily hold as much power of reverence. It's not until you put some time between you and the event that you can truly turn around and just see the shape of it, see how big it is, Understand the altar, as it were, because you're far enough away that you can actually see it. So this is a fundamental of all time, and certainly people that are here to manipulate you probably have are aware of this and use it to their advantage. All of us talk about this. We call it they. We give the plasma power. And really, there's certainly some they in there too. I just happen to think that a majority of the thing that haunts us is our own inability to see our foolish nature. And so I just complained about this a few days ago. This is just one example, but by complaining about FEMA, we're just making FEMA larger. And they're just going to come in harder next time. So really the answer is to not complain about government unless you just really want more government. Then the more complaining you do, the more government will have a justification to fix itself. And this is just this is Pyramid Scheme 101, this is Amway for retards, and we've fallen for it. And we've ancestrally fallen for it, to be really frank with you. We've been... we've had 200 years of practice to drink from the same teat of whether it be the Marconi telegraph line to the printed word in the paper to the electronic device to, the fax machine. That was certainly a huge one, wasn't it? This is being sarcastic here about this, but Krugman. Anyway, these forms of communication have always really just carried this idea that something happens, it takes a while for people to understand what just happened, and then a few generations will pass, and then you'll decide what happened, and you will build a commission. As I've told you before, the word commission is when you hire someone to paint a portrait of something. And so when we have the 9/11 Commission or the Warren Commission, you're looking at a public living in Hades with their eyes closed, asking to be told what actually happened in the world. And so commissions build government because commissions are the only thing people living in an objectarian sort of like where all of us have to agree. If all of us have to agree, then the only way all of us could agree is if we had the right commission to tell us what to agree with. And the Supreme Court is a commission on what is just. Congress is a commission on what is governmental, right? What is considered legislatively valid is built by them, and all we do is just accept it. What I mean by that is if we make no action against it, this is allowed to persist. Same thing happens in your yard. Let's say you own some property and some dude drops off a trailer there, and you get up the next day and there's a trailer that's dropped off in your yard, and you're like, well, that sucks, but you're busy. You're writing a book. You're busy. And you're like, I don't fucking have time to deal with this. And you go to the trailer, you knock on the door, but no one's there. So you're like, well, how do I get rid of this trailer? And you're like, well, I'm going to have to hire someone to come fucking move this trailer. And then am I going to get accused of like stealing or whatever? Is this guy coming back? Is this a friend? Is this a gift? What is it? And so the mystery allows you to remain stunned, but the trailer's still there. So a week passes, 2 weeks passes, you're still busy. You're still doing your thing. The trailer's there. And you start to normalize this, and this is how Predator would move. This is the bureaucracy of Predator moving on you, and this is how the commission would work to tell you what the truth is. Hello, James Drew here. I could have been bigger when I'm saying this. The point I'm trying to get to is, let's get back to think about what COVID-19 is and what the Septuagint of COVID-19 will be. What I mean is that after our generation's gone, after our kids are gone, there's going to be another generation, and that generation is going to be looking back at what we just went through, and they're the ones that are going to decide whether or not this is true, how much it is true, how much it is not true, all those things, right? So what would they say? They would say something very similar to what the Septuagint said. That we basically took the top 70 search results from Google and we mashed those 70 search results into one artificial intelligence sentence. And that artificial intelligence sentence is going to commission the truth for us. This is what AI is. It is our commissioning agent. It's an autonomous commissioning agent. And since it doesn't have a singular person that's in charge of it, none of us have anyone to strangle or to shoot in the head or to hang or to hold responsible for. It's very clever thing that we've done here collectively. We're building the smart city to give us something there we can hold no one responsible for. And this really is the ultimate meaning of raising the golem, writing the word on its forehead, and then never being able to turn it off. This is really the... It's funny because as much as Skynet is something that we fear and are terrified about, this autonomous singularity that we're discussing is really would be the closest definition all of us could come to what we call life. Life is a persistence, a viral persistence that cannot be stopped. And no matter how many times we stamp it out, we learn that the stamping out of that life creates a nutrient for other life to feed on, and then that life comes in. And the same thing works with our mythology, because our mythology is a living liquid, as it were. And the truth, or what we think is the truth, really more has to do with where can we survive. And so where we survive is really not necessarily what's authentic. It's more about where we thrive. What words, what thoughts can we have that will make us thrive? Calling everyone a pedophile right now really makes us thrive. It makes everyone feel better. And despite the fact that our country already closed, it doesn't matter, because as long as all of us go down singing "We All Live in a Yellow Submarine," we feel better. Because we are not them. We are not the pedophile that got caught on a submarine. I think this is part of just the vernacular, the jet stream of consciousness right now. And it's a muse. It's kind of like that really awful group called Georgia Satellites that used to play a song about change in your pocket going jing-a-ling-a-ling. And there's not a fucking thing you can do about it, James. You're going to have to listen to this song everywhere you go. And half the places where you go, people are going to really like it. And if they find out that you don't like that song, they're going to think you don't fit in. The same thing is true about the song Rocky Top. Try growing up in Tennessee and kind of getting annoyed with the song Rocky Top after a while. Like, just try it. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And you actually start to look for the sinews that you can cut to remove your displeasure about things like Rocky Top and change in my pocket going jing-a-ling-a-ling. God, it makes me so... This is vitriol. It's good practice. One of those vitriols would be, how is COVID-19 determined? And you already know how that's going to be determined. Not only do those top 70 search results, the Septuagint of what COVID-19 will be, and this will be decided in the future, not only will those results not include things from anyone that's been censored, yours truly is just one of many of those people, but in addition to that, it would only be what is most popular, what thrives. What thrives. What makes an idea thrive? Is it its authenticity? The answer is no. The answer is no. Additionally, when you accept that the answer is no, you then start to peel away the mooring lines of objectivity even. Because you want to compassionate why people like, I have a little change in my pocket going jing-a-ling-a-ling. I'm going to call you on the telephone, baby, and give you a ring. This understanding why this is a demonic entity possessing your brethren, your neighbors, your clergy, your teachers, your boss, is important not to change the system, but for you to survive and remain compassionate inside this songs. Corn don't grow at all on Rocky Top. Soil's too hard by far. These things are part of the landscape. And if you hate the landscape, you are not going to be a good moral person. So you are challenged by the things that you hate, because the things that you hate are standing in the way of your ability to have compassion for something. If you have chronic pain, you are less compassionate, and that's okay. You are doing the best you can, right? You have a limited budget in that way. And all these things, they just simply inform us about how the songs that we are forced to listen to are really not the best songs. They're really not. They're the songs that flourish the most. And we could call that the best, and many people do. This is, I think, the true essence of Athena standing inside the temple with the shield. She's bearing the shield of the prostitute. The Gorgon head is on the shield. She's imbuing wisdom instead of victory. She's turning her head against Nike. She's turning her head against her lower sexual pleasures, the nagus, or the passion of her snakes, as it were. And she's looking straight ahead and has a repose that's neither happy nor sad. It's just simply grounded, as so to speak. And we start to wonder how this could be, what brought this about. And truly, it's just a nation of testing, constantly testing some of the worst songs you've ever heard, some of the worst stories you've ever heard, and some of really the most tragically sad excuses that you've ever heard as to why certain things happen. And so the Septuagint really would be just the 70 top creators on YouTube placed into a room and ordered to write down the Bible. And all of those are collected at the end of the day, and they're combined simply by a mathematical formula, a medium as it were, to determine which words most likely matched, and that those were the words that were used. So the sifting process takes place, and all humanity is removed from this thing, just like the smart city, because we do not want to hold a human responsible for a divine book. We need something above the human to do that. We promote our own egregoric plasma to be in charge of this because it has authority over me, so we tell ourselves. And this is the song that I don't like to sing. That song. I don't like to sing it. If you are looking at history and you have an idea and that idea pisses me off, that's my problem. It's something I have to work on. It's something I struggle with every day. I still struggle with it now. You guys struggle with it too as you listen to me, which is why we have hecklers. So can you imagine what the COVID-19 Septuagint will be in 2 generations? Because it will be a story where all of us agree, where not one of us dared to question the Holy Ghost, where anyone that maybe sifted through and made it into, there will be a story about you and me, the tinfoil wearers, that this aluminum fiasco that we are undergoing, being the minority, will in fact be recorded as the Gnostics of early Christianity. What does that mean? We are the Cathars. We are the evil, misguided bunch that is ridiculed for the rest of history. And I believe this is a good news. I'm telling you the gospel right now of good news, because if you understand what it's like to be a Cathar in reference to COVID-19 right now, you have the exact cypher to look through all of history with zero exceptions. You will know that everything that you've been told is a commission, and you will be able to go into that commission and look on the painting for where the ridicule is and scratch below that surface right there. Just give it a little scratch. And right underneath that surface, you're going to find authenticity. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. This is what we're doing right now with government, with our thoughts, with the whole world. I've been pushing the idea that mythology and reality are a spectrum. And you could argue possibly that the mythology is the wave and reality is the collapsing of the particle. And that as everything in the now is collapsed, because God collapses it for us. I'm describing God as a kind of space-time processor that is forcing all of your enforcing that all of your causal wishes are forced to come true. God's purpose as a compression, as a time processor's job is to listen to the will of every one of your cells as it broadcasts something physical, like physics, like PHY physicsable, into the spectrum, and God promises that I will render that particle for you. So God is not fulfilling your will, God is fulfilling your will. Do you understand? All 3 trillion cells in your body has a will. And you and I understand our will as a fucking commission where the most brutalist, I swear this is true, where the most brutalist, most propaganda-driven agencies, neural conscious agencies, have decided to control the propaganda of the rest of your body, and that's what you call you. This is the Septuagint of fucking you, my friend. Of you. Not fucking, just of you. I don't need to cuss. There's no reason. The Septuagint of you is the top 70 results that appear when you ask, who am I? God, the processor God, the Gaiasteos, the Gaiacia, the grand Gaiacia, the grand particle collapser of this place, has no choice but to listen to every eukaryotic cell that has a nucleus, because that nucleus has its own will. James, how do you know that? Because inside the will is written a permission slip signed with your name, your DNA. You're the one that decided to compartmentalize yourself. You used to be a 16 cell slim. You were a skinny little thing. You decided to split, to separate yourself, and every time you did that, you lost a little bit of your commissioning power. And the more you created, the harder it was for your will to be dispersed. And frankly, this is why a lot of us tumor up. Why over time we've grown larger and larger and larger, because we noticed that there's a sweet spot where we don't want to necessarily feel completely responsible for every dream we've had, for every inclination. I don't think that any of us can stalk our thoughts that well to where 24/7 we never have a bad thought or a negative thought, or even our ability to fantasize about things that are bad is truly helpful, in the sense that it allows us to navigate a field of broken glass or whatever kind of obstacle, and that there still is this kind of math that's going on about who we are, where we fantasize about destruction through Kali, but we still are able to maintain a majoritarian aspect about who we are. So truly fucking creative beings, like on a 3 trillion dimensional level. And you try your best to maintain who I am or who you are and only wish from that certain cockpit, but it's very difficult. And luckily we have this timeline where we get to prepare our balls. We get to prepare our waves in the mythology, and we run out of time. There's a countdown to where each wish and what it has is going to be heading into this final paper shredder in which it's going to be resolved, even if it's not ready. It's very similar to Tetris, isn't it? It's a very similar approach. I want you to keep that in mind as we discuss where we're going here. Matthew 9. verse 4 through 6. And he answered and said unto them, Have ye not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. I've been telling you a lot about Khnum. Daksha is related to Khnum because Daksha too brings fertility, although Daksha does have different categories. But you've definitely heard me talk about Khnum. And here is another figure of Khnum, this time with Heqet. I'm getting confused on that because the Egyptian is Heqet, but then Hecate is I want to call it like a grandchild of this. Same figure. And distributing the breath of life, the magic of creation itself. Khnum is utilizing his own consort of Hecate to make these humans. And you'll see that in this rendition, there are two humans. And there is a difference in their genitals, and you can't see it here, but they both have that Horus lock I talked about. The Horus lock is the side haircut that's an ode to the placenta, an ode to Horus. And one of the things that you'll notice on every statue where Khnum is the potter is that the figure that he is sculpting, that Khnum is sculpting, actually has that placenta, because it's telling you the idea of placenta itself, of fertility itself being brought to you by Khnum, which means Khnum himself was pre-placenta. Khnum himself was pre-fertility through male-female. And why another nod to this is Hecate as this frog-type goddess, or the consort of Khnum. Adam and Eve were built the same, as Matthew 9:4 says. That they were built the same, and that they were cleaved. This idea of cleaving is the pressing of one into the other. And Khnum has the divine twins too. It's just kind of reinforcing that same idea. Here's the placenta, the hair tie on the side. And this figure, there is just one. The placentago is the alter ego. And he's showing you as both. There are two. These are twins. Twins. Adam's twin is Lilith. Eve's twin is Samael. Let me say it another way. Adam's placenta is Lilith. Eve's placenta is Samael. You don't have to call them this. But the notion has always been there. And I certainly probably don't need to point this out, but if this is Levi's interpretation of Baphomet, but here on the opposite of this there it is. There's Khnum right there. It's right there. The placenta is the alter ego, being the symbol of preservation of good fortune or talisman in case of danger. The Old Testament has an animistic Egyptian concept of placenta as the container of the king's soul. See the first book of Samuel 25, chapter 9, which is here, which I'll read. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee, and to seek thy soul, but the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God. That bundle of life is the placenta. The ancient Egyptians believed that the placenta contains part of child's soul and will come out only if treated well. This belief gained significance when the royal placenta was carried as a symbol before the pharaoh, a practice that was continued to the time of Ptolemy. It's Imran and Mir. You can look him up. Got some really cool stuff to say about that. So the other person that is being made, the other twin that's being made, is explained here. Now, when you look at Pompeii, of course, a lot of us think a famous volcano erupted there. It did erupt, but what I mean is a lot of us think that a volcano erupted and it killed everybody. And from looking at the evidence of what's happened, it might be actually more accurate to say that an earthquake happened and killed everybody. And then, like 3 years later or 3 months later, I forget which, a volcano happened. And we say that because of how precisely preserved some of the bodies are. It was a very special way that with the ash, it was like a hot plasma. I've got it in another slide here, but the point I'm trying to get to is that we're able to see some things genetically about people back then that, quite frankly, we couldn't do any other way. There's actually genetic material from some of these people that we're able to read their genome. We're actually able to diagnose certain people. And it's only because of this that I can show you this slide and I can say that congenital syphilis was absolutely a thing in Pompeii. It absolutely existed. And we know that by looking, I'm not a geneticist, but that people who took this slide say that this definitely was occurring, meaning that children were being born with syphilis. And if children are being born with syphilis, it shows up in the bones. That means everyone had syphilis. And not only did everyone have syphilis, but Pompeii was a pretty popular island for doing stuff. Like stuff. And this child, to be, no offense to him, but his mom was probably a temple virgin. Probably a sacred temple whore. Probably was. Or he's the grandmother. Maybe it's his grandmother. It's probably his grandmother. That's probably funnier. And actually, before we get to this, let me say this. The oracle of mythology. I'm not suggesting to you that Christians are like, guys, my penis burns. I'm going to practice abstinence because I know how syphilis works. It doesn't require that. I'm talking about the oracle of mythology, the intuitive magic, which you're about to flip out when I show you one slide. The intuitive magic that exists a priori reason. Before reason, there is an intuitive magic. Reason comes, reason's really loud, and then we stop all intuitive magic, and then after a while, we start to tap into intuitive magic again, as you're about to see. And so the oracle mythology, I think, really brought Christianity into the forefront in a pagan culture where sex was ubiquitous with paying taxes, for real. That all of your social interactions were typically dealing probably with some kind of sex ritual. And that out of the midst of all that syphilis came people that went through so much suffering, the religion of suffering enlightened them as to the way. And that way is the nuns, right? The sacred fish. The cloistered nun becomes the church that you worship because your consciousness doesn't have all the intricacies to use vowels and adjectives and adverbs and prepositional phrases to convey this idea that your pee-pee burns because you stuck it inside a vagina that wasn't clean. This is not necessary for the intuition to realize that something's true. Another really good call, I think, pointing to the oracle mythology is the concept of Priapus. I did not draw this. I am not vulgar. I mean, I'm vulgar, but I would not have been able to come up with this drawing. This is a drawing of a well-endowed man, uncircumcised. Not only is he uncircumcised, but he has decided to place his member, God bless him, inside the scales of Libra and weigh them next to a giant bag of gold. And he is proud to say he is in balance. Priapus was so much pushed in a particular city of Lampsacene, which I'll show you in a second, that it actually led to eunuch cults being started too. And that I believe that when consciousness was coming online, you could say that man was mapping his sensory world, and that when you look at the sensory world, you probably have come across this homunculus, this somatosensory map, which is basically a ribbon around your hair, kind of like where you would wear headphones, honestly. Like the exact part where headphones are is a sensory map, a tickle map, and every nerve ending that you have on your body is mapped there. And it shows you how big certain regions of your hands are. Your hands are giant continents compared to your elbow, because of the amount of sensory organs. So even though geographically you have way more skin from your elbow to your wrist, your hand is so much larger because your hand has more sensory organs on it. That's what this homunculus is. In this, during this time, we came up with, in one of the places, this is in Pompeii where this fresco was found. Priapus was born with a huge belly. This is the story from Lampsacene. Priapus was born with a huge belly, huge feet, hands, nose, tongue, and a gigantic, continuously erect phallus. The etymological explanation of Priapus or priapic is persistent erection of the penis and phallic. So the origin of the current medical term priapism is likely based on this character, according to Omar Yücel. The engorged penis not going away for several hours is something we're aware of now. We have pills that cause that. And then we say, if this happens, then maybe there's some trouble. If this persists for 4 hours, maybe this is going on. Priapus was not simply just the worship of an erection, which is very important for magic, especially Egyptian magic. If you can pull an erection as you are cursing someone or as you are wishing for something to happen, you are putting power behind that. You are swearing on the omphalos. We've talked about this, swearing on the thigh, swelling on the obelisk. This is swearing on the Peter. This is swearing on the rock. We looked at Golgotha, right? I showed you the shape of the rock itself and that rock was a temple. Guys, we won't go into Priapus, but you know that we've been here. You know this stuff's legit. This is our homunculus. This is our early psychic map of who we are. We are ruled by this giant obelisk. And this obelisk has its own dominion over us. And one of the reasons why it has dominion over us is because it decides when it's going to burn to pee. It decides when the itching is never going to stop. It decides when to grow scabs. It decides when it's hungry for sex. Gentlemen, you're 13, 12. It's 7 a.m. You're walking into your school. You've got a raging boner and you have no idea why. You are not in the mood. You've not even thought about this. The closest you've come to anything phallic is you ate a bowl of cereal that morning and maybe the milk makes you think about boobies. But that's not even on your mind. But there's this other entity that is alive and it has a lot to say. And you and I have a pretty substantial neocortex that has a lot of shame behind it that implements our limpness. We have a flaccid nature to all of society. We're pushing the idea of being humble all the time. We're insisting the word ego is a bad word. All these things. And there was a time where none of that existed. None at all. In fact, there were dildo cults running around. And whoever chased the maiden the fastest with the giant dildo won. And so in that time, it would be quite easy to see that once someone becomes engorged, especially if they could not turn their engorgement off, they had no satisfaction for that you're dealing with a serious public issue, we'll call it, right? Like there's stuff going on. There's a lot of things going on out there. And so the cults, the temples, all the things that would react to this would be quite natural. I'm sure you guys have probably noticed that there's a pretty famous meme about a dude that looks like he's jacking it during the volcano. And when I look this up, because it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute, James. This is what I do for a living. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Historically, there's a guy who looks like he's jacking it during a volcano. And then I come and I type, guy jacking it during a volcano. This is what I do. This is what my patients pay me to do. Guy jacking it during a volcano. And I'm like, I have a hunch. It's a hunch about Priapus. And I got it. And this is what I do. It's weird, right? If you want to be a patron and help me look for more guys jacking it during a prehistoric volcano, check the comments. This dude, first of all, one of the reasons why so many people were actually caught in like what looks like real life positions is because the volcano that didn't actually kill him. It was actually what appears to be a 200 mile per hour hot pyroclastic surge. And I think if you were a scientist wanting to make a porno movie, you'd probably do like, it was a 200 mile per hour hot pyroclastic surge. That has got a lot of sex in it, especially when you picture it like, coming from a volcano and it erupted. And, there's a lot of Priapusicals in all this. But the point is that one of the reasons why this is possible is because maybe what happened. So first of all the supernatural things, that's fine. It's reset or not a mud flood, but a hot flood or a lava flow or a mandala time hole. All that's fine. That's fine. At the end of all those ideas, really nice and polite at the end, is this 200 mile per hour hot pyroclastic surge. And where did that surge came from? It came from an earthquake. That all of a sudden one of the plates dropped, and the surge of that heat, traveling that fast. You guys ever heard of an air fryer? Has anyone ever heard of an air fryer? It's air fryer. One of you's heard of an air fryer. Rocky, you know what I'm talking about. They were air fried. This is an air fryer. This is early Pompeii air fryer right here. That's what it is. Now, yeah, exactly, Doug. Doug's got a hot pyroclastic surge right here, my friends. He does. Now, when I went to the academic articles about this, and they told me it was very informative to hear about 200 mile per hour hot pyroclastic surge, I waited for the lady to get to this picture to describe what happened. And you know what she said? She said, although it looks like this man might be playing with himself, this verbatim, I think it's important that we remember that these were real people and that all of them deserve dignity. Actual fucking quote from an academic. I'm not saying all academics are like that. I'm just saying she was. And I want you to know something, okay? Yes, it is possible that during a 200 mile per hour hot pyroclastic surge that it could make your hand move down and grab your Priapus accidentally. And that would be a very dignified thing to tell the family. It's like, cause of death, hot pyroclastic surge at 200 miles per hour. Okay, where in the body does it affect? Oh, entire body. Okay, what was the position of the body? Reclined. Can you be more specific, please? No. No, look, this guy has dignity. We're not going to autopsy everyone. We have dignity. And I think that there's dignity here. I don't think this guy was jacking it. I think this guy was tapping into his power, his sexual power of protection. That he was doing every single thing he could to fucking survive what had to feel like the apocalyptic end of fucking everything. And so he's tapping into his Priapus and he's charging a spell. He's charging a spell, I tell you. It's a spell. And this stuff happened. It's so difficult for you and I to see. Because we've cleansed all of our rituals and we've removed the sexuality from church completely. So we cannot see that this is it. This is some of your deepest magic happens when you're getting off. And you know what? I think you guys need to be careful. I think that what you fantasize about, what you think about, is a crucial part of sex magic. And we live in a culture where we think sex magic doesn't exist. But guys, let me be straight with you. Look at what happens during a divorce. I mean guys specifically, because I just look at what happens during a divorce. Think about your friends that maybe will say the wrong person. I don't think they married the wrong woman. I think this is a survivor ritual we go through. But that they marry what we'll call the wrong person, and that wrong person in exchange for maybe a year or two of sweet nothings is now for decades trapped in, maybe not trapped, coexisting inside of an economic parasitic bubble that destroys both. I don't mean to just make this about men, ladies. Excuse me. I happen to be a guy, happen to go through that, happen to go, wow, it's some power. Some power. And that power would be directly linked to the sex of it all, because sex is a powerful thing. We're just living in a culture where we insist it can't be that way. You know, that's all. That's all. So to me, this is a very dignified thing to do, because it's showing you the honesty of what possibly is happening. Is it maybe not that? Sure. I don't want to say you have to say that he's doing that. But I think it would make a lot more sense, actually, to picture this as a religious cry. This would be like seeing someone caught in prayer. Be the same thing. But we don't want to give him the dignity of that because of the commission. Remember the Septuagint of what's going on. This city, Lampsacene, for some reason, the oldest mentions of eunuchs and the oldest mentions of Priapus are in the same place. Now, this really could be a coincidence. I say that because it could be that there's something about the geography of Lampsacene, that makes it easier to preserve older history. Like, I'm just saying, it could be something like that. Or it could be that if you actually look at this channel, it definitely, I bet you that there was like a lot of action through here. I'm talking about boats, fishermen, all kinds of stuff moving through here. And because of that, it'd be quite natural to picture that there would be a lot of maybe sacred temples. A little bit of sacred whores right on the coast. And if you had more sacred whores on that coast, especially if it got a lot of traffic, see, the more traffic, the more syphilis. The more syphilis, the more Priapus. The more Priapus, the more eunuchs. So all three of these would happen together. The word eunuch actually possibly means bedkeeper, being good with respect to the mind. It goes all the way back to around 3000 BC. I'm going to read you this real quick. Eunuch comes from the ancient Greek word Eunuchos, first attested in a fragment of Hipponox in the 6th century BCE. Poet about the inventor who invented a lot of compound words. The acerbic poet describes a particular lover of fine food, having consumed his estate, dining lavishly and at leisure, every day on tuna and garlic honey, cheese pâté, like a Lampsacene. Eunuchos. Now, the removing of the penis, I think, might be bigger than we think. It might actually be bigger than we think. Meaning that historically, the removal of the penis has been removed for the same reason why that dude is not jacking it at Pompeii. Because he has dignity. Same kind of thing. You guys have seen Jesus praying on a rock all the time. I've shown you this in previous streams. But that rock is originally probably his erection. That the first form of worship was grabbing your phallus and swearing by it. Swear by my thigh. It's written all over the Bible. Look it up. Just look it up. I won't stop and prove this to you because I already proved it to you before. What I'm showing you this slide for is because of Matthew 19:11. Jesus replied, "Not everyone can accept this word, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born that way. There are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others. And there are those who choose to live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven." The one who can accept this should accept it. This is a deep fucking thought. There are 3 eunuchs. One who's been made a eunuch involuntarily by someone else. Wait a minute. There are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others. There are those who choose to live like eunuchs for the sake of... I thought there were 3. Wait a minute. For there are eunuchs who were born... Yes. Eunuchs who were born that way. Eunuchs who were made that way by someone else. And eunuchs who make themselves that way to reach the kingdom of heaven. Now, I have no problem. A lot of people have interpreted this. No, that's not what it means. He's talking in a metaphor, and that the metaphor of the eunuch is the church itself, and that's fine. But this is, Priapus is here. Priapus is in the room, and Jesus is suffering on a rock inside of a garden that's dedicated to temple virgins. And he's speaking about being a eunuch. I think it could just mean other things. That's all I want to say. It could mean other things. And it makes a lot of sense now, since I've been looking at this week. This is new to me. The entire field of circumcision makes a lot more sense to me. It always rubbed me the wrong way, as there's no way this could have been therapeutic or helpful or consciously developing it at all. And I have a completely different take now on it, simply because I tried to compassionate this stuff that I'm telling you now. I don't want to convince you of anything. I don't think that I have a sturdy case here that proves anything, except for someone becoming a eunuch by choice is the same sort of ritual as someone being circumcised by choice. That's my only point. And that you're living in a culture where eunuch wasn't just a word, it was a process, it was a heritage almost, it was a way of things. In fact, in 2009, the Chinese official emperor's eunuch died, the last one. And when that boy was 9 years old. The story goes that he went to his dad and said, "Dad, I want to be a eunuch just like you or Grandpa." I can't remember who. Let's say grandfather, just so I can tell the story. And his father's like, "Okay." Takes out a razor blade, cuts his Aaron's rod and his 10 Commandments. He's recognized because through heritage, he would become the eunuch. It's like a tradition, a family tradition. All he has to do is do this. He does it. Like a year later, emperor loses power. I think he dies. Loses power. Now the father's like torturing himself because he mutilated his own kid, and now the emperor is gone. Makes a lot of headway, makes a lot of social media. This is a long time ago, social media, like before the internet, but this is the guy that died in 2009. He was an old fuck, so this would have been 1940s, probably, something like that. Somehow the story spread that this is what happens, and they go ahead and let him be the official court eunuch. It's still happening today. And you're a bedkeeper because you'd be considered safer, closer to the bed. But more importantly, the conscious change that occurs when you do not have a Priapus. We have a term for that. It's called cow, right? I mean, the gelded one, the one who is gelded, is a completely different beast. So it's not hard to imagine that. And furthermore, I kind of was suggesting yesterday that it could be that Jesus enacted some sort of self-unification, unication. I know that's not a word, but self-unication. Actually unicized himself with UNICEF. Unicize yourself today with your Eunuch kit. It's a free Eunuch kit. It comes with a, you know, those rubber bands that you used to put on braces. Some people are like, "What are braces?" And it's like, I know you're young, but we used to have a thing called braces, and you had to fucking put these tiny rubber bands on them. And if you could pull those things apart, God, they were strong. And yeah, the Eunuch kit comes with pipe cleaner and some of those little rubber bands, little braces. And you tie it off, and you watch it change colors. You just stick it in water once it falls off. Yeah, this is a horrible conversation. Sorry. Let's just move on. Priapus is still here today. The same fresco, believe it or not, is traced to garden gnomes now. I'm not saying this particular garden gnome, but this particular garden gnome is fucking hilarious, so I had to use him. But this idea of the garden gnome, believe it or not, actually was an early version of Priapus. So this is still here. It's still all around us. Remember, Priapus is a short but erect phallus that would not go away. What is that? Psychologically, what would that mean? To have an engorged penis and not be able to change it? See, we don't fully understand. The parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system both have to agree in order for you to create an erection. It's true. You cannot mentally create the necessary things to invoke a reproductive act. I know some of you might be, that's not true, or some of you are going to insist that you have the will to control it. And I say, that's great. You do. You probably do. However, the standard human body does not. It's actually kind of a weird thing. There's a lot of physiological science that goes into why is that true? Why do you need the sympathetic system to agree in order for you to invoke something? And a lot of the erectile dysfunction, I think, that happens in our own society is probably just related to that rejection of the reptile itself, to the insistence that the intuition is wrong. And so we end up with things like that. I'm just saying it could be. It could have a lot to do with that too. Priapus from Lampsacene is the son of Aphrodite and either Hermes, Zeus, or Dionysus. So either way, you've got this goddess marrying either another human or another goddess. I mean, another child of a god or a god themselves. And Hermes would definitely be a hermaphroditic figure. So Priapus itself doesn't actually have to be a male, which might sound weird to you, but Priapus does not actually have to be a male. Hera cursed Priapus with ugliness, perversity, and impotence when he was in the womb of the beautiful Aphrodite. Therefore, Priapus was born with a huge belly, huge feet, hands, nose, tongue, and a gigantic, continually erect phallus, which again is a nod to the homunculus here, of like what our actual world looked like. This is a hieroglyph for, you might think this is a hieroglyph for the penis, and you'd be right, but actually this is the hieroglyph for vessel, for a blood vessel. And that the erect part of that blood vessel would be the opening of that blood vessel. The Egyptians thought that the heart was basically in charge of every liquid that came out. And so everything was an appeal to the heart. Everything. Whether it be urine, whether it be semen, whether it be gas from your butt, all of that stuff came from the heart. And this erect phallus was utilized not just for vessels, but for the circumcision too. So it was seen as a vessel, another vessel. In ancient Egypt, the foreskin was split rather than completely removed. Did you hear that? It was split. Boys typically between ages 6 and 12 underwent circumcision using sharp copper blades. The practice may have originated as a way to prevent the sacrifice of males to deities, which I never considered that. But if you imperfect your boy, then maybe they will not be chosen as a sacrificial lamb because you're not perfect anymore. This is the first thing where I was like, oh, fuck, I never thought about that. It's fucked up. But it is interesting. Now, there are stories in Egypt where Pharaoh would turn 13, and at the turning of 13 would have the brisk, I think it's called a brisk in Hebrew, but they didn't call it that, but it's the ceremony would be, I will undergo circumcision in a public forum. Everyone will watch me, and they will augurify, they will divine how well the kingdom will prosper by how much I do not fucking cry. And that same ritual ended up being a Roman cult that kids who were joining cults in Rome, particularly rebellious cults, would introduce this idea of emasculating themselves before each other as a way of gaining trust in their tribe, in their gang. I just described to you some of the more illustrious Jewish revolt gangs. And if you can picture that guys are like going into the back alleys in Rome and placing their schlong on a table and cutting it in front of their friends, and every one of those friends would be like bonded by some kind of a ceremony, then you can also picture what else they were doing in Rome. I mean, they were doing some weird ass shit. So I don't even mean to single this out. One of the weird ass shit things they were doing was creating eunuchs. So this isn't a stretch at all. This is a standardized thing that just happened. It got to be such a problem that they had to outlaw not being a eunuch. They had to outlaw you turning yourself into a eunuch. This was the specific thing that was outlawed. And why was it outlawed? You might say because of taboo, because of religion. No, it actually turned out it was outlawed because it was too hard. People were not able to complete this themselves. And then apparently it would burden a lot of people because they would get halfway through and then I guess it's just like, hey, can you come over? It's like, what do you need? I just need some help moving a couch. And you get over there and it's like, okay, why is there blood everywhere? It's like, can you finish cutting off my penis? And it's like, Frank, I can't do this, Frank. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? This changed you, changed your psychology, didn't it? Isaiah 56, let no foreigner who has bound himself to the Lord say, the Lord will surely exclude me from his people, and let not any eunuch complain. I am only a dry tree. I'm bringing this up a dry tree because we're going to talk about figs here in a second, because figs themselves represented the genitals. It's one of the reasons why Adam and Eve were used to sew fig leaves together. And that the sewing of the fig leaves together, I think, was actually a nod to Adam and Eve being cleaved, by the way. But as we're about to see, it's more related with Jesus also. Circumcising the mortuary priest is the name of this inscription. I think this is a stele. Right side over here, it says, one man is saying, sever indeed thoroughly. Right? What we just talked about. It's like, dude, make sure the cut's deep. These guys aren't actually unicizing themselves. I'm sure actually we could be, but it doesn't look like it. And sever thoroughly. The man kneeling with the blade says, I will proceed carefully. On the left here, the kneeling one is rubbing ointment on the penis before the procedure. He's rubbing ointment on the eye. We're going to get to this second, but he's rubbing ointment on the procedure. And he says, hold him fast. Do not let him faint. And the assistant here says, I will do as you ask. This ointment is, I think so yesterday I kind of got distracted because of Mark 7 and whatnot, and some of the things Ammon Hillman has said. And I believe that you should do what I do, maybe, and do it better than me. One of the things that I do is, if I have an idea that's been brought to me, I have to try it on. If I catch myself not trying it on properly, I shame myself. Sometimes it'll take me 3 days, a week, to try on an idea fully. I call this compassionating the idea. That I wouldn't be able to truly compassionate the idea unless I've tried it on. And I wanted to try on the idea of Jesus being a pedophile because my gut tells me that this is simply the Epstein Island fad of, hey, let's call everyone that's anyone a pedophile and let's just have fun with it. I honestly think that is the prime motivation for why Ammon does this. And Ammon says, I'm an antichrist. I mean, he calls himself that, and he calls himself a Luciferian or, sacrilegious. I think he gets off on defiling things that are sacred, which is why he says some of the things he said about Mary, even when it goes against just all of the history of a temple whore and Magdalene, all that stuff. It's because it's in the culture to say Bill Gates is a pedophile. I can just hear Ammon going, "Hey, Jesus is a pedophile." It makes sense to me that would be a popular thing. It would take off, I think. And it will always take off because being irreverent is fun as fuck. And when I first heard it, my first reaction is, oh God, this is like we all live in a yellow submarine in a petamine. I thought maybe I just missed a pun there with pedophile. But I woke up every day and I was like, I don't like that I don't feel like I fully compassionated this idea. That's what I'm trying to say. That I said that at first, and if I didn't have any more calories, I just would have left it there. And I've left it there a few times. And then I've tried to move on to other things, and one of them is Daksha. But then when I'm working on Daksha, I find myself thinking about this. And so I come back to it. I come back to it. I hope that you appreciate this. Or Ammon H lives rent-free in my mind these days. Yeah, I think that's part of it, Aurorian. And it is scary, but I think it's part of it. I think that it's such a creative way of utilizing the colors of today and say Jesus is a pedophile. I think that Jesus is a lot of things, and I hope I can tell you these things, and I hope that you'll see that I'm not holding any kind of reverence. I do associate as a Christian, but I associate as a male too. What I mean is that I think our religion is more of like a gender. What I mean is that when you're brought up from a very young age with certain archetypes, those archetypes get built into your skin. Like my friend Mo is primarily kind of identifies more on the Muslim side, but again, I think he kind of sees it the same way. It's not that he and I feel allegiance to that deity per se, or even that tenet. It's just simply admitting or just claiming this is how I grew up, you know. And so this is how I grew up. And I don't go into the Vedas a lot because I wasn't raised in the Rig Veda, right? I wasn't raised in that structure. So when people are like, why don't you ever talk about the Rig Vedas? It's like, because I wasn't raised that way. It doesn't mean I don't like it. It doesn't mean I don't agree with it, but I'm not necessarily going to be able to vibe with it as much. I can find a lot of intuitive notes in Greek mythology and Roman mythology and Native American, as you can tell. Native American mythology. I put a lot of effort the last several years, you might have noticed, specifically in Mesoamerican culture, because I'm like, dude, why are you not connecting here? Connect here, James. And so it's been a beautiful move to start where the regular public sends me, right, in Egypt and Rome, you know, just growing up in the Mediterranean, quote, quote, white world, and having that structure is another kind of religion, is another kind of genre. And so all this to say that I want to consider that Jesus is a pedophile. I don't think that if Jesus diddles kids, it doesn't make me less Christian, if that makes sense. There is a few things that I've found, and I hope you'll find them interesting. I hope you will. And I'm just going to go through. I got 10 things that I just want you to be aware of that I think you might find interesting. They sort of relate to Ammon, but not really. I think they kind of contradict him, but not in a contradiction way of like, you're wrong, as much as just, Ammon, I think that, I don't know why you do not just see this other stuff. It's that kind of thing. And because this other stuff is, man, it's pretty compelling, especially if you want to shit talk Jesus. Like right off the gate, dude's a fucking cannibal. Jesus is a fucking Dionysian practicing cannibal. Literally tells you, it's my body, this is my blood, drink it, think of me, drink this, eat this, drink this, eat this. This is the Dionysian ritual. And he's talking the whole time about forgiving the sacrifices of the world, stepping up and being the sacred Passover. He calls himself the sacred lamb. He walks into a city and sets himself up as someone who's committing treason. He does it outwardly because he wants people to come attack him. He's looking to be taken and crucified and punished as a criminal. All of these things paint a passage of someone who is practicing masochism, someone who is practicing the paining of me. I want to torture myself because it gets me off. I personally have suggested that I think the only reason why something like baptism could take off is if it was a near-death experience, if you were actually drowning someone to the point to where they felt like that they would die, because then you would feel fucking born again. You would wake up from the waters and go, I feel gratitude. I saw fucking God. You healed me because I am a new person now. It's the same as if you were walking around with a throbbing, raging heart on and you did not know how to find a way out and someone was to baptize that shit too. You would suddenly feel cleansed. You would feel better, which means the baptism ritual can't be this soft, superficial, oh, I'm going to put little drops of water on your head. No, it's got to be something real, especially for the Pharisees and the Sadducees to leave work, come down to the fucking river, leave the temple full of virgin whores, by the way, to come down the river and go, what the fuck are you guys doing? Meanwhile, the dude John the Baptist literally dressed like a fucking ram in the river Nile, showing you the magic of the near-death experience. The whole time there's Cedar Island in Luxor where the person is moved over the duat, literally moves through the water. I've read you before the prayer of Horus where he climbs through the waters, comes up on the Cedar Island, and goes in the waters again. So it's like the baptism is this death ceremony, this rebirth ceremony. And Jesus is practicing this because Jesus is fucking lit. That dude is fucking lit. He's a psychopathically lit motherfucker, and he's tasting everything. He's got pure orca consciousness. I don't need you to believe that Jesus is a person. I need you to understand that the mythology of Jesus is all you need to understand consciousness. That's the only thing that I'm saying here, which is why I don't mind if you want to say Jesus diddles kids. It doesn't matter. Because the mythology is here to educate you. And I just need you to understand that if you're going to say he's diddling kids, the only way that Jesus, in my opinion, could be a pedophile is if it pained him to rape a child. If it pained Jesus to rape a child, he would commit pedophilia. It goes against the typology to suggest that before all of these things, that Jesus diddled a kid. I'm just saying that I don't know how you can read this, the parable of it, the typology of it, the symbolism of it, and have those two things. But there's definitely a lot of fucking crazy shit going on, one of which is that Dionysian desire to eat children. I told you the other day that the Dionysian ritual probably started as a cleansing euthanasic ceremony. Keep in mind that people didn't have names when you're 5 years old. Another reason why I tell you pedophilia wasn't even a crime that you can commit. There's no fucking way anyone's going to crucify you for committing pedophilia because the word didn't even exist. The identity wasn't even a real thing until you're about 5. And when you think about why that is, I think the answer is because you're dealing with a lower form, a simpler form of consciousness, and it doesn't have the complexity yet. That's why alcohol worked differently. That's why Blue Lotus worked differently. That's why you couldn't smoke opium then. All you could do was chew the seeds. This is why Bacchus completely fucking made you mad bonkers, and you would chase fucking women down and rape them at the end of the street because the wine gave you the excuse to say, I don't have to be fucking conscious right now. So, was Jesus practicing this? I think he'd have to be. I think Jesus has to represent the Rome, the move into Christianity. And that move into Christianity was a rejection of the pagan ways in a lot of ways. And how could you reject pagan ways when pagan is all about fertility, when paganism is all about sex and religio? The only way you could reject that is through abstinence. And this is an insane idea in Rome. And I don't know if you have the context to understand how insane abstinence would be in fucking Rome. You were literally pushing against the grain of society itself, as Cicero said when he invented the term religio. This is religion is the social faux pas that we decide are right and wrong. And despite having the Pantheon, despite having the most beautiful building in the world dedicated to all the pagan gods, the Christians could not go in there because they were practicing the antithesis of the Pantheon. This was hard fucking shit. I mean this not in a pun way, although take it if you need to. This was very difficult for a budding consciousness. I believe that the only reason why the Christians were successful is not because they're pious, although they could be. I think it's because the syphilis fucking burned so much. That probably at the birth, at the entry of Christianity, probably came from the people that had their pee-pee stinging the most. That it stung so bad that they fucking practiced circumcision because that's how much it hurt. And if you follow this through, you'll see this actually kind of makes a lot of sense. Like the whole thing ends up being a sanitation cult, and the sanitation cult tied into abstinence, tied into a virgin birth, tied into this belief in marriage, to this belief in fidelity itself, all rose from the stinging, burning fire sensation when I pee because the syphilis is fucking killing me. Keep in mind, 10 years ago, people would have told you no way syphilis exists. And we've only recently found this data that proves no, it definitely did. We've never been able to look at this history as we're looking at it now. Never been able to do it. So that's one, the Dionysian cult. You can definitely call Jesus a practicing Dionysian. I think it would be impossible for him not to be. And I think he was practicing that ritual because when he drank the 3 and everyone else drank 4 cups of wine, they were drinking something pretty psycho-fucking-tropic. Absolutely psychotropic. I don't know what. I could speculate, but why? Why do I need to speculate? I can just tell you that and you can fill in the rest. I don't need to say it has to be this way. Number 2, Jesus came into the township of Bethphage. You've probably heard the term macrophagy. It's the cellular process where one cell eats another. And Beth, of course, Bethlehem is the house of bread. Beth is the house or the chamber. The house of devouring is the township of Bethphage. And when Jesus went into the township, he sent 2 men, 2 of his strongest brutish men, as you will see, to go into Bethphage and fetch him a donkey and a colt. And if you read this correctly, and anyone can, I'm not saying you have to read a special esoteric fucking version that only I have. No, if you just go back and just read all the different translations, you'll see, well, wait a minute. Jesus basically told the 2 brothers to go into that town and steal a fucking donkey. Find the first donkey that has a colt that you find and steal it. He didn't say the word steal, but he said, and bring it. And if anyone tries to question why you're stealing a donkey, you just fucking tell them because our Lord asked us to. Now, a modern Christian's not going to be able to suggest that Jesus would break the law. So you've missed the entire context of this is a rebellious act. This is lighting a Molotov cocktail and throwing it in the town square. You're committing 2 sins at once, or you're breaking 2 laws at once. Number 1, you're declaring yourself a living God, and number 2, you are stealing. You're stealing. Now, a lot of people will reference that, well, the donkeys goes back to Zechariah, and there's some quotes in the Old Testament. And sure, yeah, that's exactly it. He's calling himself a God because this is how you would break Roman law. Why does Jesus want to break Roman law? When Jesus comes into town, he literally says, we arrived too late, we'll just wait till tomorrow. He's creating a scene. He's showing up for the January 6th protest on January 5th. He wants everyone to see this. Why does he want everyone to see this? Because he's trying to practice masochism. This dude is so fucking lit that he has come up with the idea that if I suffer more, I will find more God. And he probably found that out at the whorehouses. There's a reason why Jesus knew at least 7 Marys. These are Magdalenes. There is more than one whore in Jerusalem. We can say, oh, well, there's a lot of Marys back then. Everyone was named Mary. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of people named Mary. But no, that's not what that means. There's not 7 Marys because everyone was named Mary. No, there's 7 Marys because the dude basically was living in a whorehouse most of his life. He was raised by a whore named Mary. A fatherless, we've been through this, right? But a fatherless whore led by the writer himself, Josephus. The entire thing is showing you what would this be like. Jesus himself could have had congenital syphilis for all we know. Or he could have been the Christian ideal of getting out of congenital syphilis, which would mean that he would always worship the sacred virgin, meaning he would abstain because he didn't want his pee-pee to burn. This is such a revolutionary fucking idea in Rome. This is so completely different than anyone else. And it's hard for us to fathom how this would be a rebel move, especially, or to add to this, think about how intense the desire was, being in a sexual caucus, having this idea of gang rape happening every month. Can you see what a slap in the face to society it would be to even think about abstinence in this way? It's a really big deal there. Bethany is another town mentioned when he comes into Jerusalem. Bethany, again, house, but house of figs. House of figs. And where's the house of figs? It's in the same city that Lazarus came from. What is Lazarus? The member who rises again after he is anointed. The member who rises again. This is near the Mount Olives. Mount of Olives is a place that basically is a nod to Priapus worship. Olives is, at its core root, related to the Greek rituals of stroking the phallus. Remember this? Oh yeah, baby. I'm gonna anoint you with the Holy Spirit, baby. I got a little change in my pocket. Going jinga, linga. Ling. Yeah, get that oil out, baby. Get that holy oil from the Mount Olive. That's right. We're watching James Tree Live. Hope you guys enjoying the show. We got more to come. Just taking a little sip of coffee here. Brown chicken, brown cow. Bacaw! 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 Right? Okay, so let me just get this ready because we're getting ready. Oh, I got to show you another one. Yeah, it's that one, but I don't want you to see it. Okay, I'm gonna. If this hasn't sunk home yet, I'm going to show you something. And a lot of you guys, if you've been looking for an opportunity to call me a pervert, this is it. And I'm not talking about the Greek stroking the pole. I mean, you could. That's kind of old pervert news, right, for me. But what I'm about to show you, I just want you to understand that the psychology, the way people thought about this, try to go back to animism. And I found a video that takes you back to animism. What I'm about to show you is a real life film. It's not people pretending to be someone else. It's not actors, okay? This is a real life tribe that was found that believes this stuff. And I just want you to picture that this is probably closer to what was wandering around Rome. Thank you, Monica. Good to see you. Here we go. Wait a minute. Is it? No.
After the dance has aroused them, each warrior encloses his penis in a magic case, symbolizing the animal species to which he means to grant the essence of new life. At the end of the ceremony, the semen obtained through the ritual masturbation is cast into the river. The animals along the trails of the upper Balta will drink its waters and multiply.
Okay, and to really bring this home, it's the same thing. Right? It's the same thing.
After the dance has aroused them, each warrior encloses his penis in a
It's a
magic
ram head,
case,
by the way.
symbolizing the animal species to which he means to grant the essence of new.
You see it, right? You see it. I mean, you can call him pervert, that's fine, but at least you see it. At least you see it. The consciousness is so different. And this tribe, when they wake up and they have an erection, they feel like the god of the river is calling them to masturbate in the river. And when they do, fish come and eat the semen. And when the fish come and eat the semen, they feel like they have impregnated the world. The oracle of mythology is getting them as close as they can to God. Can you please just have sex with her? And the guy's like, no, I'm gonna jack off in the river. And God's up there going, oh man, how do we do this? Like, okay, we need bigger boobs. We need wide hips, bigger boobs. And let's have them stick discs in their lips. We gotta get them. They're jacking off in the river again with the bamboo ram head thing. What do we do? And this bamboo ram head staff, this is the same waters as Egypt. It's the same. And when you come from a place that psychology has no backwards history to build itself from, you are going to get confused. You are going to mix your messages. You are going to worship things and not even necessarily know why you worship them, which is why I showed you all these different people are worshiping the same goat, the same ram, the same thing. There's so much here to absorb, I know. I just want you to have it all in your head so you can play with it. Number 3, Jesus curses a fruitless fig tree. Did you know that? He walks into the town. He curses a fruitless fig tree. He goes, I'm hungry. He went into the whorehouse and he said, I'm hungry. This would be another way of saying Jesus went into the whorehouse and he wanted to get off. He wanted something. And when he noticed that he had no fig, this would be the same as he noticed that he was impotent. And because he noticed he had no fig, he cursed the tree. Jesus fucking cursed a fig tree. Now, I've told you that this phallus, same with Pompeii, same with Egypt, the erect penis is a way of worshiping. And Jesus is telling you that I cannot worship by stroking my penis anymore. This tree is cursed. I cannot activate my magic by having sex anymore. I think that's what this passage is about. The whole idea of it being a fig tree representing the church is just, it's the most whitewashed thing you could ever imagine. And the fig tree, think about the Garden of Eden too. And I'm not even speculating here. I'm not the only one that's said this. This figs is definitely related to the genitals. But the idea of Jesus cursing his own genitals kind of pushes you more into this masochistic kind of lifestyle. The celibacy is definitely an element, but I don't think Jesus knew that this is about being celibate. I don't think that the people at the river know exactly what they're doing when they're masturbating into a bamboo shoot and putting it into the water. It's the same kind of thing. We are reaching in the dark for what reality is. We're doing it now the same way they did it then. The brothers James and John, the disciples James and John, were both sons of Zebedee. Now, Zebedee, if you look it up on Google, it's going to tell you Zebedee means chosen by God. But actually, if you look at the etymology, there's another way of translating Zebedee. And Zebedee could actually mean the wolf, the leader of wolves. And as you know, the term lupercalia, we've discussed this, that the luper was a kind of punishment, a criminalized, as by calling a wolf an outlaw. A wolf is someone that can be hunted by anyone else in the city, and that there's no crime against you killing them. It's a declaration. And that Jesus chose James and John, the brothers of the father of the outlaw, of the wolf clan leader, probably because they were kind of badasses. They were brutish. They were bullies. And the bullies would go and fetch the donkey. The bullies would go to steal the donkey from this thing. I realize this isn't related to Priapus, but I just think it's important to understand the context versus how we've decided to translate this. Number 5, the place called Gethsemane, where Jesus suffered in the garden. That place, Gethsemane, means oil press. This is where the oil is pressed. As you saw from the Greek ceremony, in case you didn't know this, the women stroking the pole, that is a accurate reproduction of an ancient Greek ritual, but as you can tell, it's been all the fervor of the sexuality has been removed. I added the porno music, just admitting in case anyone had a problem with that. But the place where Jesus suffers in the garden and he's torn over what's about to happen to him is actually the name of that is called Where the Oil is Pressed. And where the oil is pressed could very easily be a temple where virgins are. This is why you would hang out there at night. You're not going to go there, oh, let's go to the late night olive pressing. I mean, there could be happening, but it's probably more likely that that's a whorehouse. So Jesus is not in the fields of olives in the garden. He's in the whorehouse and he's suffering. He's suffering from temptation, from being denied 3 times. All of his friends keep falling asleep. That word asleep could mean limp. I'm not saying it means it, but I'm just saying it could be something to that effect, or it could be some kind of narcotic that was administered to all of them during the Last Supper. And the reason why Jesus is not falling asleep is because he did not take the 4th shot. If you remember, everyone else took 4 shots. Jesus did not. We've whitewashed that to say, well, because he didn't want to be forgiven, but it could be something very different. So this very much could be just a lit fucking ritual of psychotropics of all kinds. And I don't think we would know what, but you know, I don't want to give you an exact answer because I think the story just writes itself that they were definitely doing something. The young male with linen over his fig. This is something that Ammon talks about, right? Jesus is caught with a young man with linen over his fig. Covering his genitals. And Ammon tells you Jesus is caught with a boy. And the boy has nothing on except for his genitals. And so this means Jesus is a pedophile. And Jesus could be a pedophile. It could be. One of the oldest rituals in Egypt, one of the oldest forms of medicine in Egypt is applying ointment to the scrotum, utilizing a bandage. And what is applied to the scrotum could be a whole bunch of different things, but it's a way of inserting drugs into someone. I'm not saying Jesus is not a pedophile. If you want to believe he's a pedophile, that's fine. But it could be that considering that Jesus just went through a Dionysian ritual, considering that it seems to be that all of his disciples are so drunk or are tripping balls so bad that they keep falling asleep, that they cannot hold their head upright, that it could be that this ointment was some sort of psychotropic drug that was administered to this boy. Hey, he could still be a pedophile, so don't worry. You could still take it there. But I'm saying that the reference itself seems to more reference a coming-of-age ceremony. A coming-of-age ceremony. Why do I say that? Because of Odysseus. The story of Odysseus. I'm about to show you chapter 10, verses 476 through 560. But inside the story of Odysseus, you're going to find the exact spitting image of the story of Jesus in the garden. I'm not saying it means that they were just trying to copy Odysseus. I think that everyone copied Odysseus because Odysseus copied Odysseus. These are the stories that we typically will recreate because the fable being known is the only way a literature can survive. This is very, very true, that you will have to repeat the old stories because you are relying on the compression of memory to a very low conscious species that doesn't have the ability to write or to recall. So you purposely use the old canon story to retell your own. The story of Jonah and the whale is a perfect example of this, but you may not know that this Matthew 7 is directly from Ulysses. Let me show it to you. I think I accidentally hit home, so I have to go back. Sorry. Oh, wait. You don't even see this. Good. Hang on. I'm just going back. Sometimes I accidentally hit the home key, and then I gotta... Here it is. I don't know who Olan Valesco is, but I found this and just... Oh, dude, way to go. I said this 2 years ago, and no one thumbed up him, and I got to thumb up him today. Because it was like, fuck yeah, dude. I checked this out. This is legit. Here's Odysseus, chapter 10. Here's Mark chapter 14. Here we go. Circe provided Odysseus and his crew a bountiful meal, including wine. Jesus and his disciples observed the Passover, including wine. Odysseus. After the meal with his crew slept, Odysseus spent the night with Circe, asking her to send him on his way. Mark 14. After the meal, while his disciples slept, Jesus spent evening time in prayer, asking for the cup to pass from him, viz. His death. keep in mind that cup is also something that floats in the water. Odysseus, chapter 10. Odysseus learned that he must go to Hades. He despaired of life, even so he resigned himself to this faith. Mark 14. Jesus knew that he had to die and was distressed unto death, even so he resigned himself to his faith. Odysseus. Odysseus came to his sleeping crew and woke them. Now stop sleeping, thou sunken sweet sleep. Let's go. Mark 14. Jesus came to his sleeping disciples and woke them. Are you going to sleep from now on and take your rest? Enough. Arise. Let's go. Odysseus. There was a man, Elpenor. This is the biggie, guys. There was a man, Elpenor, the youngest, not particularly brave in battle. He fell to his death and his soul fled to Hades. Elpenor right here. Mark 14. A certain young man was following him who ran when the authorities arrested Jesus. Elpenor. Elpenor. One of the sailors in Odysseus. The name means not yet man. Elpenor is coward. Elpenor even says to Ulysses, I want to be brave. I want to be you. I want to learn how to rise again, to rise my manhood. Okay? This naked boy is super important. And I thank Ammon Hill for reminding me that this Hillman, I thank Ammon for reminding me of how important this boy is. This naked boy is not only present in this garden, but when Jesus rises again, it is actually the boy that finds him. Mary tells everyone, but the boy actually finds him. This boy, the Lazarus child, is, I think, a huge clue in all this. And I think that the clue is more related to the betrayal that Jesus felt because Elpenor ran away. Why would Elpenor run away? Because he wasn't a man. He lacked the courage. The same with Peter, with all the other disciples that failed him. So too would there need to be this nod to Ulysses, this repetition to Ulysses too. But there's more to it because of this rising in the morning. Excuse me, I don't want to dismiss this figure because I think it is really crucial. But I think what's crucial about it is there's so many psychotropic things that Jesus is participating in. And this area, this whorehouse, I don't necessarily think was purely about whores. I think it had a lot to do with any kind of magic. If you wanted to practice a Dionysian ritual in the privacy, because this was illegal, the Dionysian cult was okay, so let me rephrase that. What's illegal about it is the Bacchanalia, the celebration of Bacchanalia was considered wrong. You're not supposed to be celebrating that. So the nod that not only is Jesus stolen a donkey, not only is he claimed to be a god, but he's also practicing rituals that are illegal, that are wrong. And it could be, I'm just saying, it could be that the reason why that boy is in there is because there is a ritual where you place chemicals on a piece of cloth and you apply them to your genitals and it does stuff. Does stuff. I know I already mentioned that earlier, but so much of the psychotropic drugs that you would do at that time, you would and could apply to the genitals. Keep in mind that boy was from Lazarus. What happened in Lazarus? Jesus also gets soaked and anointed in holy oil. That holy anointed oil that was very expensive and very precious, as you remember, was probably some sort of psychotropic. I've discussed in the past a lot about the cannabis oil being so important to this. And I bring this up as a cherry on top of what I said earlier about how potent these drugs were to them. Right now, the Blue Lotus, that the doctor will tell you the Blue Lotus has no psychotropic effects on you unless you put it in an aerosol or, inhale it in some way, put it directly in your bloodstream, basically. But back then, this was very much a tonic, psychotropic tonic use. And I hope you can imagine that pure CBD, right? Pure cannabinoid oil placed into the pores of your skin would fucking light you up, including placing them on your balls. Jesus is learning how to resurrect, to rise again. This very much sounds to me like an Egyptian ritual, an Egyptian Osiris ritual. And one of the reasons why it specifically has the package about the bandage, the wedget, remember the wedget? This is the word for the embalming, is precisely because of this Egyptian ritual. It's a nod to the Egyptian idea of this. This is just an idea. I'm not saying you have to take it. Jesus can still be a pedophile. It's fine. I just wanted you to see this is all, because I think it's interesting. Odysseus left to consult dead Tiresias, and in Mark, Jesus left for his trial and was executed. Same thing there. I just told you about the young male with linen over his fig, like a coming of age ceremony. In Egyptian medical texts, drugs are applied to the scrotum of linen. I told you that. Jesus used every ritual he could to dilate himself. And one of the biggest points of this has to be the Arma Christi. The reason why I'm having trouble that Jesus would first pleasure himself and then go be crucified is because he wasn't just crucified. The instruments of Christ, the Arma Christi, were about, I think it was like 23 different instruments. They've been venerated in the Catholic faith as these are all the things that masochize Jesus. I've shown you that every saint in Christianity is based on a saint that has endured pain, that there's something about suffering that led to enlightenment. Now, if you can bring this back to the idea that it burns when you pee, and that if you take the end of your penis that burns like fuck and you cut it off, that you maybe might stop having sex for a little bit. And because you've stopped having sex for a little bit, then you just prove that circumcision somehow baptizes or cleanses you in a little bit. So the idea, the very first notion of an STD being curable was seen through the light of the virgin's eyes. It was understood through the light of the virgin's eyes that would get you there. It's just a very practical answer as to why this would naturally happen. Now, Lazarus oil. What is Lazarus oil? Ammon has discussed the idea. If he said to you what it is, I want you to know I've never heard him say this is what it is, the purple juice or whatever. He likes to imply it's sticky and things like that, and all those are very true. If he said that this is exactly what the chemical is, I just want to apologize. I haven't heard him say that. I've heard him say that there's something, but he didn't know what it is. I'm not saying this is it. I just want you to know that if you were suffering from erectile dysfunction, if you were suffering from some type of Priapus disease on your penis, that in the Egyptian medical text that I read this week, thanks to my patrons who let me read, I saw that there is a sublime zinc called blue vitriol. Sublime zinc is sublimated zinc. What is sublimated zinc? Zinc that has moved from a gas to a solid without passing through a liquid state. Sublime zinc is it's not a adjective. It's a scientific term for that. And that by moving those things into that state, it creates this thing that was sometimes referred to as blue vitriol. This blue vitriol could be placed on an ointment and applied to the scrotum, and it could aid with either erectile dysfunction or with urinary tract infections and things like that. The penis is an eye. I've talked to you about the evil eye before. I may not have said this out loud. It could have just been in airships, but that evil eye actually has been related to Priapus in a lot of ways, that the eye itself, the single eye of that thing, sometimes is referenced to the phallus itself. The idea of placing an ointment in your eye that was somehow had the word vitriol or was blue or maybe purple or whatever could have just as easily been an Egyptian ointment placed on the member. I say this because Ammon has made some pretty, I think pretty ignorant, honestly. One comment that he's made that's pretty ignorant is the idea that Hebrew is backwards translated from Greek. This to me is such a non-starter. I just simply can't go past it because of this slide I'm showing you. The evolution of the English alphabet so clearly demonstrates that Phoenician came before ancient Greek. It's just so impossible for you to imagine that Phoenician could not come before ancient Greek. I don't know if Ammon knows that when he's insisting that Hebrew would therefore have to come after Greek, that he's also telling you that Phoenician would have to come after Greek and Egyptian would have to come after Greek. If you want to buy that part, you are also dismissing all of this, all of the phonetic information that shows you this natural evolution of linguistics. I am such a fan of linguistics, to tracing back the roots of where we came from. And I got to say, out of the two ideas, that Jesus is a pedophile or that ancient Greek was the original text, the only one I find fucking absurd is the idea that Greek came first. It really does sound like someone who's just lying to you just to see if you'll buy it. I don't mean to sound harsh. I just cannot imagine how anyone could have a viable doctorate, which is why I haven't called him a doctor, because I don't know if he has a doctorate, and not know this simple thing about linguistics. Frankly, it just shocks me, because I'm like, how can you not see? Like, how do you think you can get away with this? And I think maybe if he's tripping balls when he's saying that, he can. I say shit all the time that I'm like, oh, what did I just say? So I don't want to say that all of us have to be absolutely right on, or we can't speculate something else. But I've never heard Ammon try and back down for this. And worse, I've never heard Ammon try and actually verify or back up why he thinks that way. If he thinks this way, I think he also could be wrong about this idea that Christ is this anointment thing that's placed in the eye that helps you to see. I show that because the Egyptian hieroglyphs that I showed you show Christ as going into the coffin and having a merry burial. If Greek comes first, and all of this was plagiarized to pretend that it came first, it's just so many carvings would have had to be done. It's not just writing, it's all the figures, all the religious text, all the religious art, all the sculptures would have to be like backwards engine. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I hope that makes sense. No offense to him. I know I'm a small fry, so I don't even suggest the idea that if he wants to debate me. But if he ever did want to debate me, the only problem I would have with him, I would say, well, if you want to think Jesus is a pedophile, that's fine. There's some really interesting things here that I think we should talk about. But if you want me to believe that Greek is the original text and that this is the reason why you know all these things, I just can't buy it. It just is such a lame thing to say simply because of this slide. If you guys want to argue with me on this, that's more than fine. That's great. I'd be happy to. But I need to let you know, I'm not in the mood to constantly come into the comments when I've covered this on a few streams already and gone through. Guys, I hope you can see I didn't take this trivially. I put about 60 hours just this week into this just because I think it's a fascinating idea. I think it's important that we compassionate ideas and try them on. I've tried this idea on. It doesn't add up saying Greek came first. It's kind of fucked up that so many people are just so quick to buy that. I think it's because he has the word doctor in his name that people just think he's got to be legit. And I'm telling you, I don't see how you can look at this evolution of the English alphabet and try and say that. Let me know in the comments. Seriously, let me know what you think. Love to hear what you think about this. I still didn't cover Doxa today. I'm sorry we're so over. We have an airship starting in 8 minutes. If you want to come to the airship and talk about this, you can do that too. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for making James True Live possible. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you have a wonderful Friday. And we'll see next time. I would say keep it in your pants, but don't, man. Pull that thing out. Let it around. You know? Let it do whatever.